Hello, my lovely crafty companions. I hope you're well. Excuse all the shadows. I've had to put all of my lamps on again. I'm not recording in the middle of the night. It's actually the middle of the morning. But it's one of those days where it's really, really warm and the sky is full of dark rain clouds. So we've got that most despised British weather phenomena. It's proper muggy. But looking for the silver lining to the cloud, the garden's loving it. My plants are going absolutely bonkers with all this heat and moisture. So it's not such a terrible thing, I suppose. Anyway, if you have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Honestly, it means the world to me. This channel is very nearly 3 months old now, and there are 29 subscribers. Another subscriber joined since the last video. So including me, that means there's 30 of us in the MakeDoMend hub. I think that's a cracking achievement, and I really am grateful to each and every one of you who does keep coming back. You're really, really precious to me, and I genuinely love you lot. If you haven't been here before and you're brand new, you are so, so welcome. Thank you for stumbling across this little corner of the internet that we call MakeDoMend. I thought I might just start out giving you a very brief introduction to what this little place is all about. Like I say, this channel's about 3 months old, but the MakeDoMend journey started way, 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 way before that. I have always been a bit of a maker, crafter. I've always enjoyed doing lots of different types of crafts, mostly fibre crafts, but other crafts and things along the way. There's been periods of my life where I've been really prolific with crafting, and it's something that I've really got stuck into for months, even years. But then those periods of intense crafting were always broken up by, well, the busyness of life, really. Because, it's not always easy to focus all of your time on your hobbies when you've got young kids or when you work full time. So, I've always enjoyed making and crafting. Now, towards the back end of last year, I had a mental health crisis, which is not the first mental health crisis I've ever had. I think by the time you get to your mid-40s, it's only reasonable to assume that life will have thrown up a few challenges along the way that will have derailed you once or twice. But this particular little mentee bee was probably, I don't know, I think it's the one that affected me the most physically than any other challenging times I've experienced before. So everything kind of came to a head. I'd been suffering with depression and anxiety for a period of time, and it got to a point where I just stopped being able to physically function. I couldn't think, I couldn't make, I couldn't really articulate myself verbally. I just became this shell of a person who all I could do was just cry all of the time. It was pretty awful. Things got a bit out of control. The world got really, really fast and busy, and I just wanted to get off. And so I did for a little while. I had to. I was forced to. I couldn't function. By this point, I'd already been watching YouTube for a long time, almost exclusively. It's for about the last 3 or 4 years, probably about the only televisual type of media that I consume. I don't bother with terrestrial TV. I'll occasionally put Netflix on, but YouTube is my go-to. And I watch a lot of craft-based channels of all different kinds, whether it's sewing or crocheting or paper crafts, pretty much anything. So when I was going through this period of breakdown, that's one of the things that I could do, was just sit and sit in a quiet space and watch content on YouTube that brought me joy. I was very selective about what I was watching. And I came across some absolutely wonderful channels. And I often say, and I truly do believe, that a lot of the creators' content that I was consuming kind of kept me going during that really dark time. I wasn't finding joy in very much. But yeah, consuming content about crafting and making, it kind of ignited this spark in me again. I started to think, wow, I've always enjoyed making things. I've always enjoyed using my hands and crafting and producing things, whether it's a piece of art or whether it's a functional piece of something that I can use. It's always something that's helped me feel a sense of purpose. Like I've got this goal, this clear end product, this output that I want to produce. So there's a sense of purpose in that. And it's always been a great source of joy, actually going through the process of making that output. And I'd forgotten that for a good while. So yeah, when I was forced to kind of stop and not do very much of anything else, I suddenly wasn't so busy. The rest of the world around me was still moving way too fast and it was still far too busy. But I wasn't physically busy. So yeah, I was consuming this YouTube content and it was sparking that joy. It was igniting that passion in me again. I started thinking, God, I need to make something. I need to try and get all of this busyness out of my head and focus on something, focus on making something with my hands. And maybe that will be a little bit of therapy. And my God, it was. It really, really was. I started to see myself change, and other people around me in my life started to see me kind of return back to this person who had a little bit of a spark in their eyes. So yeah, I'd wanted to create a YouTube channel again. It's something I'd wanted to do for such a long time because I'm such a consumer of YouTube. I love it, but I was always of the opinion that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't skilled enough. I don't have the crafting skills, but particularly not the technical skills required to create YouTube content. But again, during that time where I was finding that making and getting out of my head and into my hands was real therapy for me, I kind of realised I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be this amazing professional crafter who produces these high quality products. I just need to be real, and I need to enable people to feel that there is a space that they can come to if they too feel like they need to make and get out of their head and into their hands just to survive, where we can kind of come together and congregate and find inspiration and learn and grow and find what we like, learn new skills together. So yeah, what MakeDoMend is. Anyway, that took a very long time to explain, and I haven't yet told you what we're going to be doing in this video. So, in my last video, if you caught it, I mentioned that it was a thrift haul video. Basically, I was showing off all of the stuff that I'd bought at a recent trip to the Shed, my local charity shop. And I said the reason I wouldn't be able to bring a video where I was showing you me making something was because I was just so busy. And I've had time to pause and reflect since making that video and realised, no, that's those horrible old feelings, those mental health clouds creeping back in. I wasn't too busy to sit and make things. I just felt in my head like everything was too busy. And so a few days ago I thought, right, sod this, I'm not going to start wallowing again and forget how much joy and how much therapy making brings me. So I'm going to have a play with my fabrics. One of my most favourite ways to play is with fabric. I have accumulated a couple of shoe boxes. They're kind of overflowing now, but they're absolutely jam-packed full of scraps, bits and pieces of fabric that are left over from other projects. And I was looking at all of these scraps, and even just that was bringing me so much joy because I was thinking about the projects that I'd made, that I'd bought that fabric for originally. I was thinking, what am I going to do with all this? And I hit on an idea. So one of the things that I try to pick up when I am doing my little thrifting charity shop adventures is notebooks. just blank notebooks essentially. They don't necessarily have to be lined notebooks. This one is a lined notebook, but there's a couple that are completely blank pages. But you can pick them up really cheap, brand new notebooks. I was picking them up for about £1, £2. Hoping to give them a new lease of life. I knew that the intention was to make covers for these notebooks, but I didn't know what I was going to use to cover them with. But as I was looking through my fabric scraps, I thought, I wonder if I could make some fabric covers for these notebooks and turn something that's quite mundane and bland into something that's beautiful. And so, let me show you what I have made. So, we've got this one here. This was the first one that I did. Got a nice little felt applique on the front. And if I just show you how they're constructed, it's really, really simple. It's a strip of fabric that's got two kind of envelope pockets at the ends that you slip the covers of the notebook into. So really, really simple. And then, of course, you can embellish it with whatever you want on the front. So that was the first one that I did. I did try to record some footage of me making or applying the applique, which I might insert a little bit later on in the video. It wasn't incredibly successful. I mean, it worked essentially, but it was the most arse about face way I could have gone about doing applique. Anyway, I'll tell you that story a little bit later. So what else have I made? I've made this. This is actually in a dress book. And I was thinking to myself, well, I kind of want to make it obvious. Whatever I put on the front, I want to make it obvious that it's a dress book in some way. So as you can see, this fabric has got little houses on, and those eagle-eyed of you can probably see where this fabric remnant came from. Anyway, so yeah, that's got a nice little applique up there as well, and some nice little gold sun rays. So that's cute. We've got this one, which is, it's, well, I don't know how to describe it really. As you can see, there's a strip of fabric in the middle, two strips of fabric either side. I've been having a load of fun making these. So my plan is to tell you a little bit more of the backstory of where those fabrics that made these books came from. But before I do that, I'm going to hand over to VoiceOver Roz to have a go at showing you how to make just the very basic slip book cover, not an embellished version. So yeah, let's see how that goes. And like I say, I'll be back shortly to tell you a bit more of the backstory about these specific fabrics and notebooks. So see you in a bit. In real time, Roz really just called me VoiceOver Roz. How rude! Does she not know this is the disembodied voice of editing, Roz? It's my job to try and explain to you what you're seeing on camera. But I just want to give a warning here for anybody who hasn't been here before. I do not claim to be a tutorial channel, and there's two reasons for that. One, I'm not that good at articulating myself and giving clear instructions on how to do something. And two, my camera skills are not quite where they need to be. So, yeah, you'll see. Alrighty then, here goes nothing. So it starts out with a notebook, which I couldn't tell you why I'm measuring it in this video because I don't really pay much attention to the measurements later on. But I've chosen this nice little lined notebook, and then of course I am going to choose the fabric. Now you need to make sure, obviously, that the piece of fabric you choose to make your notebook cover is going to be large enough to fit the book. I think that's why I'm measuring the book anyway. The width of your piece of fabric needs to be 1/2 inch longer than the length of your book. And the reason for that is you're actually going to put a seam to make those two little envelopes, the bits that you slot the book cover into. You're going to make a seam on either edge of the length of fabric at 1/4 inch. So if you make that piece of base fabric 1/2 inch longer wider, than the length of the book, you know you've got the right width of fabric. And then, of course, for the length, you want to cut it so that it's long enough to go around the book and comfortably fit around the inside covers by an inch or two. So the next step after that is to select the fabric that I'm going to use to make the binding. I'm not going to refer to this as bias binding because I'm not going to cut on the bias. That would use way too much fabric, and I'm not going to need enough of it for it to need bias binding. But essentially, I'm going to cut some strips of fabric that are 1¼ inch wide. And that 1¼ inch strip of fabric is going to enable me to make binding that's ever so minutely bigger than 1/4 inch. And so the next step is to press some seams ready for stitching. I can only apologise about the camera work here, guys. I was convinced that what I was doing was in shot, but clearly it wasn't. Basically, what I am trying to do is fold in either shorter edge of the fabric by about 1 centimetre, there or thereabouts, and pressing that down because that's obviously going to be the seam that hides my raw edge on the inside of the book cover. Then I need to fold the kind of envelope folds where the book cover is going to sit inside. Now, as you can see on camera, I did this in a really caggy-handed way. I could have done it far more mathematically correct if I just measured the thing. But the way I chose to do it was to wrap the fabric around the book on the inside cover and decide how much kind of envelope overhang I wanted on the inside cover and press that edge, then fold the fabric around the book, make sure it was nice and tight, and then hold that seam on the inside of the back cover with my thumb, whip the book out and press that seam down really quickly. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, that's how I folded the seams, the envelope kits, whatever you want to call them. And then, of course, I had to turn this strip, this 1¼ inch strip, into binding. And for that, I used one of these little binder maker doohickeys. I'm not sure of the proper name. Now, most people I've seen using these would pin the fabric on the right hand edge and pull the binder maker with your left hand as you're moving your iron with your right hand, if you're right handed, in the same direction, pulling the fabric along through the binder maker thingy. I have never been able to do it that way, so my favourite way to use these things is to hold the fabric with my left hand and basically nudge the binder maker along with my iron as I press from right to left. I just seem to get a little bit more control doing it this way. So if ever you've struggled to use a binder maker thingy, give this way a go. It might just work for you too. And now the seams are all pressed, I'm going to carry you over with me to the sewing machine, which I think is a slightly better camera angle, to sew all of those seams that we just pressed. So we sew along those edges, those shorter edges, where we pressed in about 1 centimetre's worth of fabric to hide the raw edges. And then apologies again because what I'm doing here is ever so slightly off screen. But basically now I've sewed over the raw edges, I am folding over the kind of envelope pocket bits, and then I'm going to stitch the binding on to the longer edges of the fabric to make the cover. Again, I wish I'd got the whole thing in shot. I do apologise. I will do better next time. But I hope that it's going to be clear how I did this when you see the finished result.
And now comes the scary moment of truth where we go and check to make sure that the cover fits our book. Fingers crossed. It fit perfectly after a little bit of finagling. But I just wanted to show you that obviously these little envelope pocket bits on the inside could be really useful for storing bits of paper, sticky notes, sweeties, pens, treasure, whatever you like. Anyway, back to in real time Ros now to talk you through the next bit of the video. Ta-ra!
Ah, thanks ever so much, Editing Ros. Sorry I got your name wrong. If you managed to explain that process, then you're a better person than me. But anyway, as promised, I am now just going to talk a little bit about the books that I've already made. Give you a little bit of the history of where those fabrics came from, in case you're interested. So, as mentioned, this was the first notebook cover that I made while I was having my couple of days of scrappy crafting. And as mentioned, I'm going to insert some footage here of me appliquing this little felt applique using my sewing machine. In my last video that I've already mentioned, the one where I did a thrift haul, I talked about a video that I'd done a couple of months ago, a short. Anyway, basically I went to the Shed, again, my favourite little charity shop, a couple of months ago, and I accidentally bought 2 great big sacks of clothes that I plan to upcycle. And in my last video, I mentioned those clothes again and said that one of the things I wanted to do was pull all of the kids' clothes out of the loft, out of those bags, and do some applique. And I said I was going to do some needle turn applique, but I also wanted to have a go at doing some machine applique, just because I think for kids' clothes that's probably going to be a little bit more hard wearing. So again, another reason why this project came about, it wasn't just the fact that I had a load of notebooks lying around or the fact that I had a couple of boxes of scraps. There was also this desire to learn at some, or brush up on my applique skills and have an experiment at how I might do applique on the clothes, but to not have to invest too much time, effort and resource and destroy the clothes basically. So I thought, I can combine these craft ideas and make some notebook covers that I can then practice my applique on. So yeah, I did this one by machine. And I have never tried to applique on my machine. I've had my sewing machine for about 2 or 3 years now, I think. I've never once opened the instruction manual. I just intuitively threaded it up the day I got it, and I've just been using it ever since. I didn't realise that it was possible on my little domestic Janome entry-level machine that you can actually drop the feed dogs to free embroider. I didn't know that. So as you'll see from the footage, I did this in such an awkward way because every time I needed to go around a curve or make a sharp corner, which there's quite a lot of it cat's face, it turns out, I would have to put the needle down, lift up the foot, crank the machine a couple of times to make a couple of stitches, lift the foot again, turn the fabric, drop the foot, crank the machine, lift the foot. Oh God, it was ridiculous. It must have taken me probably about 40 minutes to do that because I didn't know you could drop the feed dogs. But anyway, I learned a lot. I do like the look of the machine applique. I definitely want to explore that more, and now I know that it is possible. I'm going to pull out the instruction manual and see how you drop the feed dogs and have a go at doing some free embroidery. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do that over the next couple of days. Again, if you've been here before, you'll have heard me mention that I have a bit of a problem with a wobbly tooth that needs to be extracted from a crumbling jaw. That's happening tomorrow. Ooh. So I don't know that I'm going to be feeling physically well enough to pull the sewing machine out again over the next few days. but I've got this little plain cover, well, pretty plain for me. And the way I'm going to embellish this one is I have cut out some butterflies and just backed them onto some fusible interfacing. And those butterflies are off some fabric that I got in the haul that you saw in my last video. So I'm going to practice machine applique, sorry, by putting all these butterflies on this book cover. I will record it when I do it. I might put it out as a short. I don't know. We'll see. That's not going to be for a little while. Anyway, this one then, the address book. As I already mentioned, you can see, can't you, that it's been made using remnants of fabric from this quilt behind me. And I was today years old when I learnt that this quilt block is called a split 4-patch. There you go. Yeah, it was the first quilt I ever made, believe it or not. And I went with my mum to a really lovely big fabric store in the centre of Birmingham that isn't even there anymore, which is quite sad. But yeah, I saw the fabric with the houses and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I picked that fabric and the teal and pink fabric and knocked up that quilt. I quilted it using the hand-tied method. So in the centre of where the blocks join, it's tied. Absolutely loved making it. And yeah, that was way before I had this teal sofa. Yeah, years before I changed the sofa, so it was serendipity. Anyway, this one then, this one's quite sweet. The story behind this one is lovely as well. So I made a Kawandi quilt. I think that's how it's pronounced. Following a tutorial from Marion's World. And I'm hoping I'll be able to find the video and put it in the playlist that I'm going to link in the description below. Again, for anyone who's new here, if you don't already know, I like to try and make sure that I create a playlist, a YouTube playlist, to accompany my videos of YouTube videos, craft videos specifically, that I've been watching over the last few days and weeks, things that have really inspired me and brought me joy. So if I can find that video of Marion's, I'll put it in the playlist. But yeah, these are scraps of fabric that are left over from the Kawandi quilt that I made for my mum's 80th. And I'm going to insert some pictures here of that quilt. So that was really lovely making that one, because it just reminded me of my mum, and my mum's one of the very, very best people in the whole world, so that was nice. Right, the next one, before I show it on screen, I just want to say, Dad, if you are watching this, can you just disappear for a few minutes? Either go in the kitchen or go upstairs and listen to some music. Mum will let you know when you can come back, but I don't want you to see this one, because I don't know when this video's coming out, so just shoo. I'll see you in a minute. Love you. Bye bye. Right. So this one is one that I'm going to give to my dad for Father's Day. It's a few days away from now. I don't know how long it's going to take me to edit this video. So this video might come out just before Father's Day or on Father's Day. I don't know, but anyway, just in case, Dad's gone now. So yeah, this one I want to tell you about. There are little tiny bits in this of fabric that I used to make this quilt here. I'm going to insert a picture of log cabin quilt that I made as a Christmas present for somebody very, very special to me. So that brought back a lot of memories while I was making this notebook cover. And this fabric, and actually the pink fabric, and most of the binding that I've used for a lot of these books, these are leftover scraps from a quilt that if you've been here before, you will have seen before. It's this quilt that I call my pentagram quilt. That's not the proper name of it. But yeah, I made that following a tutorial on Missouri Star Quilt Company channel, which again, I have put that video in a playlist before, but I'm going to put it in again into this this video's playlist. I'm getting all tongue-tied now, sorry. Anyway, so this one I particularly want to talk to you about because it is obviously patchwork, which, as somebody who likes quilting, I like to do patchwork, funnily enough. So this one is made, I constructed the strip down the middle first, and then at either side of that I put these strips of fabric. And as you can see, it worked pretty well. I'm not sure if it's because the fabric was brand new, unwashed, so it had retained a little bit of stiffness perhaps. But this was the first one I did in a kind of patchwork style, where I used multiple pieces of fabric to make the cover itself rather than just embellishing onto one single piece of fabric. And this time it worked well, but the next one I did a mix of fabrics. Some were old bed sheets, some were brand new fabrics. Anyway, suffice to say, the structural integrity just wasn't there, and so it looked really floppy and pretty awful, really, because it was just too floppy for the edges to remain straight. So what I would suggest, if you do want to do one that has a patchwork look to it, I did this one after, which is kind of in process of being embellished, where I just used a single piece of fabric to make the cover, but then kind of put this piece, this strip in the middle on top. So it still has the same look as being patchworked, but it's got more structural integrity. So if you're going to have a go at a patchwork one, which is great, obviously, for using up scraps, just bear that in mind. You still want it to have a bit of structural integrity. I don't know how many times I'm going to say structural integrity. Anyway, I'm probably boring you to death now. This is the very last one. And this is one that is not finished yet. So this cover, this little orange cover, is the one that you saw me making a little while ago when editing Roz took over. And I'm actually going to finish my bit of the video here. But what I want to do is actually record myself finishing off the embellishments on this little book. And just put some nice plinky plonky music on in the background while I do that, so that you don't have to listen to my voice. So I hope you enjoy watching me do that. But like I say, I'm going to disappear now. Before I do, I just want to say thanks so much for stopping by. It really means the world to me. Come back again if you've enjoyed any part of this video. I'd really love to see you. Join the hub, please join us. We're growing in number. I know 30 people in the hub doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but it's really special to me. And if we can just increase and continue to grow and find more like-minded people who want a space like this, where you can just find inspiration and have a go at some simple, low-risk crafts with me, then yeah, hit the subscribe button. And most importantly of all, if you don't want to do anything else, if your head's a little bit too busy and the world feels a little bit too chaotic, just have a go at making and doing and mending. It might do you the world of good. Ta-ra, bab. Love ya.